Welcome to our February EnviroStars Small Business Meetup. In this series, we host monthly meetups with our EnviroStars recognized small business owners, and we discuss topics related to sustainable business practices. Today, we look forward to speaking with Aran, founder and designer at Aide-mémoire Jewelry. So just to begin, it'd be great if you can introduce yourself a little bit and maybe tell us about the company and how it started, Aran.
Sure. Hi. Thank you, Christy, for inviting me to do this. So I have been doing making jewelry since undergrad. I started in around 96 was when I started in a jewelry program at VCU in Richmond, Virginia. And I sort of continued with that for a while. I went on to do a 2-year fellowship program at Penland School of Craft in North Carolina. And it was there that I took a class from Susie Ganch, who actually now teaches at VCU. She didn't at the time when I was there, but I took a class from her at Penland. And she was really the one that introduced me to sort of all the environmental impacts and issues around metal mining and gemstone mining. And that was really at the sort of beginning of people's understanding in the US, like the general consumer and jeweler, and beginning to understand the impacts of those materials that we work with. So today was actually good timing for this because Ethical Metalsmiths, we had a meeting earlier today, and there was a lot of conversations around sort of the beginning of that awareness campaign. So at that point, I wanted to continue making jewelry, but really struggled with the idea of how do I do this in a more sustainable, more ethical way. And I sort of did stop making jewelry for a little while. Over the years, I've struggled with being an artist and making art and the desire to create and seeing the value of it for people and how it enriches their life. But at the same time, there's a lot of environmental concerns around the materials that we work with. So then I went on to grad school. I moved to Seattle after Penland, and I lived here for a couple of years, and I worked as a hairstylist part-time since undergrad, as well as working on my jewelry and my art part-time. And then I went to grad school in 2010 at SUNY New Paltz out in New York, finished there, and then moved back to Seattle again. And that's when I started the business that I have now, Aide-mémoire. So that was in 2012. So that was sort of like the birth of this particular business. And with this, you know, thinking about all those things through grad school and over the years, and how can I continue to make things, but do it in a more sustainable way. And so I sort of landed on this business, really focusing on wedding jewelry, because wedding jewelry, I appreciate that a wedding ring or engagement ring is something that somebody's going to wear every single day. So it's like, as far as jewelry goes, it's a very high functional object. It gets a lot of use out of it versus what I had done before, which was more like fashion art, maybe wasn't being worn all the time, or maybe was being worn for shorter periods of time. So, and then in doing that, really kind of like honing in on my suppliers and focusing on using just a small sort of selection of materials, and really kind of trying to vet all the suppliers that I work with.
That's amazing. And I think that's such an interesting transition into just being so kind of niche in the wedding jewelry because of that. It's the longevity of the product is a big concern. And so I really appreciate that that's the thought that went into that. I'm curious with this, it's ethical metalsmithing. What sort of...
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you
go
could
ahead.
talk a little bit more about like what sort of topics are typical ones that come up.
Yeah, so this group, Ethical Metalsmiths, has been around since I think they were saying actually maybe started in 2004. So 2004, 2005, and that was how I found out about them around 2006. And that was around the time also that there was a movie about blood diamonds that came out that really raised awareness around conflict with diamonds. And then another campaign that had started at that time called No Dirty Gold, which was really to highlight the impacts of metal mining around the world. So Ethical Metalsmiths has continued, and it's a group of mostly artisan jewelers in it. There are some slightly larger companies in there and some suppliers that are loosely affiliated with it. And then Christina Miller, who started the group, she has also sort of spun off to do her own sort of consulting work. So she has started a consulting business where she works with different jewelry companies to help them with like their sustainability. And so since the pandemic, and it's once a month, and it's been really wonderful to attend, and there's a different topic each month, and it goes for about 2 hours, and they have different presenters talk about different topics. So today we were talking about sort of recycled gold, and the like pros and cons of it, sort of the rise of awareness around it, where the shortfalls are in it, and how we can like work to change that. So that's it's just, it has been, there's also an online component for ethical metalsmiths where we have a forum, and it's just been such an amazing resource, and it's really supportive, where jewelers can go in there and say like, I have a customer that wants tanzanite, and does anybody have a good supplier for them? And you know, and then also like, how do you vet suppliers? What are the kind of questions that you're going to ask a new supplier? And then there's also like initiatives that have sort of spun off of that, of there's like this jewelry glossary project that's starting, which is really important in talking about the terms that we use when we talk about ethical, sustainable, environmentally friendly, all those things. Like, what do we mean when we're saying that? And how do you simplify these ideas for a consumer to grasp, but not mislead or oversimplify it? And then also just trying to get jewelers to be on the same page when we use these terms, so that when we're using them, we all are meaning the same thing.
That's great. Is there an issue? I know in so many industries and with different people we talk about, there's a very big concern, especially in retail, of greenwashing. Has that been something within like the jewelry community that is an issue? You know, people saying that things are sustainable and not really defining those terms?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And actually, yeah, so this is like a little bit of a pain point for me of, there's this thing called the Kimberley process. And this is just one aspect of this, but a great example of it, where after that movie came out about diamonds and people became more aware of blood diamonds and all that, the Kimberley process was established to attempt to stem the flow of conflict diamonds. Their criteria for what is a conflict diamond is very narrow. And my idea of what a conflict diamond is, the Kimberley process does not cover it. And in my mind, the Kimberley process has done more harm to the jewelry industry than good, because essentially what it means is that every jeweler in the United States that is selling a diamond, legally, we can only sell diamonds that adhere to the Kimberley process. But the Kimberley process has really failed in stemming the flow of conflict diamonds. So it has created this environment where every single jeweler in the United States can say conflict-free diamond. But the reality is they don't have any clue. Not everybody, but a lot of people have no clue where the diamonds are coming from. They don't actually know, was there child labor involved? Was there, like, what were the conditions of the mines? There's so many things that are left unknown in that, but it has given this like blanket statement to all jewelers in the United States to say conflict-free diamond. And so that's something, whether a customer buys from us or somewhere else, I see my job as partially just educating people to be better jewelry consumers and to like ask those questions, like, where did this diamond come from? What's the source? You say conflict-free, can you cite something beyond the Kimberley process? And that's really important when you're buying a diamond, is to say like, okay, beyond the Kimberley process, what gives that criteria of conflict free?
Yeah, it's like, where's the proof of it, right?
Yeah.
Like beyond the title. That's so interesting.
As a business ourselves, like we're always evolving. I'm always reading and researching and interacting with ethical metalsmiths and trying to further my understanding of it. And right now we're in the process of sort of like going through with a fine-tooth comb on our website and updating terms that we use. That, you know, I started my business back in 2012. My knowledge of a lot of these areas has changed since then. So for example, we use our like go-to natural diamond would be a recycled diamond. So it doesn't contribute to any new mining. But the reality is we don't know the original source of a recycled diamond. And so we were calling them conflict free. And now I'm like, well, are they, like, what does that term conflict free even mean? You know, and so really, again, back to that glossary project of like really trying to hone in on what terms we use, why we use them, and then explaining like why we're using this term. So, you know, we're trying to go through the website and find every instance of that and change it to say recycled natural diamond or lab grown diamond, because that's the other type of diamond we usually work with.
That's an awesome effort, I think. And are you finding that people, a lot of your customers, are coming specifically to you because they're interested in the sustainability component of what you do? They've done their research and they kind of know that you're the one to go to?
Yeah, I would say we definitely see a large contingent of our customers saying that they found us because they had Googled, you know, conflict-free diamond or eco-friendly wedding ring or something like that, or recycled gold wedding ring. Yeah, so we do get a lot of customers for that.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, I want to definitely, I mean, those are really awesome sustainability points. And I also kind of want to pivot and talk about maybe how either with sustainability or in general, things have changed with the pandemic, because that's definitely something a lot of people in the business community have had to kind of have had to deal with and have had to change a lot of their operations. How has that been for you?
Yeah, so it's been, you know, an interesting journey in the last year.
What an bad question, right?
Yeah, so we totally closed down for a few months back at the beginning of it, and then during that time, I sort of dedicated my time off to making masks and donating them and making videos to teach people how to make masks. And so I just sort of turned into like a sewing workshop for a few months, because I always need to be making something or busy with my hands, and it seemed like there was a need there. And then we then slowly reopened, but we had to shift things. And, you know, we're a really small team, so there's 5 of us, and just really wanting to be careful about health and safety, because it's important, but also like small team, one person gets sick, it really can sort of gunk up the works a little bit. And so right now we're all working out of separate spaces, and I've rented another little space in an artist studio. And so that way we're all not sharing the same air, and if we do handoffs and stuff, they're outdoors. So you know, really just trying to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and with like safety precautions and not putting anyone at risk. It is, you know, there's like a constant conversation of, oh, if we like need to hire another jeweler soon, what are we going to do? How are we going to work around that? So we are really hoping to try and just sustain the way that we've been working through the end of it. And then I had previously, I would meet with customers. We have like a showroom studio space, and I would meet with customers in there and do consultations, and they would try on pretty much every single wedding ring we offered. And that's just really not as safe right now. So the way we're working at this other space I'm renting, I do a video consultation first. And then if they're in the Seattle area and they want to try on samples, they kind of narrow down to like maybe 5 or 6. And I meet with them outdoors and they try them on. And then that way I can, like, we're outdoors, we're wearing masks. I leave them for a little while to look at things on their own. And then I come back, and then afterwards I, do alcohol clean off of all the jewelry in between and sanitize it. So yeah, so that was sort of like the big shift that we've made, is just really trying to get more online component of it and less in person. There's things about it that are great. And, I think this is helping us really rethink like commuting, for one. Like,
right.
How necessary is it for people to commute to work every day? Both the like environmental impact of carbon emissions, but also like people's time. You don't get paid for your commute to work. And I remember growing up, we grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and my dad worked in, and like on for each way. And he commuted for 8 years. And I think about that, I'm like, that was so much of his life spent driving in a car going to work. So luckily, for the most part, we've all been, everybody that works at the company pretty much lives in like the Finney, Greenwood, Wallingford area. So everybody's commute is pretty small, except for one of our employees. Her and her spouse are gonna go live in Uruguay for a year because his parents are there and he's from there. And this has made that possible. Like she's already working remotely right now, so she can go there for a year and it's not going to change her job or anything. So
yeah, I think that's I've heard that similarly across most sectors. I know for us, certainly, like, we all miss each other and that component of it, but the meetings have all been really great, because it's just like, if some people live further away and you have to come in for a 30-minute, an hour meeting, it's a commute in the area, and now it's just a simple click and you're there. So I think it helps a lot of businesses reduce a lot of the overhead too, which takes quite a bit of energy and money. So
yeah, and I think post-pandemic we'll like continue. There is something to be said for meeting in person, and it's, and I do want to bring that back to some extent, but it has really opened up the idea too of people being able to work from home more, reduce the commute, just for the environmental impact, but also for the personal, just helping people's life be a little better by not commuting.
Yeah. For the consultation part too, it's like, because I imagine people have to, there are a lot of people, myself included, who don't know their ring sizes necessarily. So you probably have to walk customers through that, or, that must be interesting to have to do virtually.
Yeah. And actually, we always offered video consultations for people that didn't live in Seattle. But we didn't really get that many. I would say we usually would have like maybe 1 or 2 a month. And now, a lot of people, we're doing the video consultations with people in Seattle because they have to do the video consultation first before they can come in. But it's really increased also the video consultations with people around the world. And it's super helpful to do. I mean, it seems like a weird thing. And I think prior to this, people maybe were just like, oh, that's a little strange to do that. But it's so helpful because I'm able to talk about the details of different like rings that we offer and get to know the person a little bit and like what their lifestyle is like, and kind of help match them up with something that's going to really work with them. And, the goal is always that people end up with jewelry that they love and they want to wear every day. And so, I think doing the video consultations helps so much in that.
And I'm also curious too, I mean, I guess there are a lot of people getting engaged during a pandemic and planning on getting married still, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, we've definitely seen a lot more people that are doing like small courthouse weddings or something, or Zoom weddings. And then they're, going to plan a bigger party for later. Had a really sweet couple recently that I was like, they just got engaged recently. And I said, do you have an idea for your wedding date yet? And they said, no, we figured we'd wait a little while and let all the people who had already planned their weddings that got canceled get the venues and stuff before we go in. And I was just like, that's so considerate of you. Very patient and considerate. But yeah, it's, I also like, I think the pandemic has been this terrible experience, but there's also this opportunity to look at it in a creative way and to take this moment and rethink the things that we do, the things that we hold valuable, how we do them, why we do them, and really analyze them and maybe rethink some of it. Like, do we need these really extravagant giant weddings? Does it, is it a necessary thing? There is like from a sustainability point of view, there's a lot of waste that comes into a wedding. Huge. So, like thinking about what's important and really honing in on those things.
I love that. I love that point. I think that's so true. It's kind of, the pandemic has presented an opportunity for all of us to scale down our usual traditions and all these sorts of things that we were so used to having on a large scale. And yeah, we're not thinking in the excess anymore. And so that obviously, from a sustainability standpoint, like you said, is amazing to see the kind of the waste that's been cut down. On the other hand, there's waste that's been generated more in other areas, but certainly I think in that sense, in the event industry and things like that, there's been a huge reduction in waste, which I'm kind of a recycling and waste nerd, so it's very exciting to me.
Sure. Sorry. There's an article in the Seattle Times this week about weddings and sort of the shift since the pandemic, and talking about more people are getting like shorter, like more simple dresses to do like little elopements and getting personal cakes. And then people are spending more money on rings because they're not spending as much money on a big wedding. So they're really like spending a bit more on engagement rings and wedding rings right now.
Yeah, spend it on the thing that lasts, right? That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, I'm wondering now, it's transitioning a little bit into the EnviroStars specific aspects of your business. How has being an EnviroStars registered business affected you? I mean, is that something that you share with customers? Is that something they look for?
Yeah, so I recently realized I've really underutilized it in a way. We had a customer and sort of talking about like how we're always tweaking the website, trying to make it better. But we're sort of reimagining some of it and thinking about how we can sort of, like I mentioned, highlight and talk more specifically about what we mean when we're using these terms and what efforts we make. But it really struck me recently of like how I'm sort of underutilizing the EnviroStars thing, because we had a customer who had emailed and said like, oh, we see that you use recycled gold, lab-grown diamonds. That's great, but why else do you call yourself eco-friendly or ethical or sustainable or whatever? And I was like, oh, yeah, to me, I'm always talking about this stuff. It kind of surprised me that maybe that information isn't as available to the customer coming to our website. And that led me to realize that EnviroStars has this report that you can get a link for, and that was one of the things I sent to them. And I just thought that was fantastic that they could go through and see like all the things that we've done, the efforts that we make that are beyond our material sourcing, but like other ways that we work towards sustainability. And then I'm excited about the new website with the business networking component. Like I mentioned, I'm an ethical metalsmith. I'm also in Seattle Made, and both of them have a forum, and both have been this incredibly valuable resource for me. to go to get answers to, just little business questions, but it's a group of like-minded people who have similar goals. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what comes of that, and to have that sort of resource of other small businesses that are focused on sustainability.
Oh, we are too. We did launch that, the business network last month, and it's growing, and we're so excited to see where it goes and the different industries that are going to interact, and also cross industry, how that'll be. So that's going to be really, really interesting. And also I'm very happy that you were able to link, your EnviroStars, sort of all the measures that you do to your website, and explain that to people, or email it to people, because that's absolutely what it's there for. And it is a resource that I think could be used more by businesses. So very, very glad that you're using that.
I'll also say too, yeah, and doing the application part. I mean, so I think I mentioned when I talked to you that I do need to go back and sort of update the questionnaire, because when I first did the application, there's so many questions on it, and there were things that I was like, oh wow, I didn't think about that, and like that aspect, because it was maybe something that was a little bit like tertiary to what I do. So it through the process of just applying, I learned so much about other measures that we can be taking. And so since doing the application, we've made changes and moves towards some of the things that we saw in the application. So that's why I need to update it, but then also go through and say like, okay, what are the ones that we haven't checked yet? And what are the things that we can start doing to check those boxes?
It's kind of fun, right? I mean, it's like you're getting all these points and you're doing the right thing. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a fun thing. And I like when businesses, it's a challenge for them, and it's an opportunity to grow. So I love that you're taking advantage of that. In that vein, what sort of advice do you have for business owners who are considering joining EnviroStars, and maybe who haven't taken that step yet?
Oh, I would say do it. I mean, yeah, like it is I will say, the application is long, and there's a lot of questions in it, and it takes some time. But I think it's a really good audit of your business to really go through and think about all these aspects of it, and how you can to highlight the efforts you're making, but also to learn other efforts that you should be making. Somebody said something today in Ethical Metalsmiths that really resonated with me, was like that if you're trying for perfect in your sustainability efforts, you're not going to get there. You're like, if you don't want to do something until it's perfect, you're not going to get there. You just have to make the efforts, learn from that, make more efforts, continually learn and strive to do better. And so I do think, maybe some people might feel intimidated, like, oh, well, maybe I'm not doing enough to qualify for this. And so I think it's a matter of just going through the application, do it. If you realize as you're going along, oh yeah, I'm not doing enough to qualify for this. Well, now you've got like a blueprint of things that you can do, and then implement those changes and go back and finish your application again after you've made those. And I see it as like a continual thing too, of, it's not like one and done, like, oh, we've reached sustainability.
Yeah, it's true. Well, sustainability is always evolving, right? So the businesses that are able to evolve with it and to keep growing with it, that's the best we can hope for and ask for. So thank you so much for being one of those businesses. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what's next for you. Very excited. And I loved getting an insight into Aide-mémoire. Definitely, I'm not planning on getting married anytime soon, but I know where to go now if that happens. Yeah, thank you again so much for joining and telling us all about it. And for anyone who is watching, please keep coming back to our meetups. We'll be posting them every month and having more great, wonderful, sustainable businesses to talk to, just like Aran with Aide-mémoire Jewelry. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for chatting with me today.